Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today is the fourth session of logical reasoning, and today we will be talking about Indian logic system. In the last session, we started with two important concepts, which we will revise, and then we will continue further. So we talked about Panchavayavi Nyaya system, that in Indian logic version of inference, there are 5 propositions: Pratijna, Hetu, Udaharan, Upanay, and Nigaman. So you propose something, then you give the reason for it. There is an example which is similar to what you have proposed. Based on that, application is done of whatever you have understood. That is called Upanay. And based on that, again, you get the conclusion. Pratijna or proposition is the same as Nigaman or conclusion. Hetu is coordinate with Upanay. Okay. There was a question that we had solved, that among the 5 propositions in Nyaya syllogism, the first coincides with 5th and second coincides with 4th. Another question was where we talked that for the inferential process, for inferring fire from the perception of smoke, which of the following statements are essential? So 1, 2, A, B, D, and E are essential. Udaharan is not important in the inferential process. It is a part of the 5 kinds of statements, but it is not important to have to write the Udaharan when it comes to the actual inferential process. So the answer is A, B, D, and E only. Okay, because we don't have any option where all 5 are there. Another question: Upanay, Nigaman, Udaharan, and Pratijna. Now here, I want you to match them. Okay, we'll do it together so that you will recall the concepts. What's the first step? The first step is Pratijna or proposition. Next, after Pratijna, you have Hetu, but Hetu is not given here. Then there is example or Udaharan. After that, you have application or Upanay, and the last step is Nigaman. So here, what would be the sequence? Whoever is a man is a mortal, just like Pythagoras. When I see just like Pythagoras, I understand that it could be an example. Socrates is a mortal. This could be a Pratijna or proposition. Socrates is a man who is invariably a mortal. Okay. This could be the application or Upanay. Therefore, Socrates is mortal is definitely the conclusion. Okay. That is the Nigaman. So what I'm sure about is, when we see therefore, it has to be conclusion. Where we see an example, it has to be Udaharan. So where does C go with 1? See, there are 2 options. And where does B go with 4? See? So you now have to decide whether A is 2 or A is 3. And I think it has to be A is 3, which is the answer. Okay, this is Upanay. This is your proposition. Then there should be Hetu. Socrates is a mortal. Socrates is a man. Whoever is a man is a mortal, just like Pythagoras. Therefore, so Socrates is a man who is invariably a mortal. Therefore, Socrates is a mortal. This is how the 5 steps of syllogism would go. Another question. Here the concepts of philosophy are to be understood. Remember the answers in the exam. Once you solve a few questions of this type, you will start understanding that these are some rules and regulations. This is how it is. This is how UGC NET perceives philosophy, the Nyaya philosophy. Assertion. There are certain psychological conditions under which inference takes place. So in Indian Nyaya system, there are certain psychological conditions under which inference takes place. There are certain conditions, there are certain rules which need to be followed for inference. So that is true or false? A is true or false? What do you think? You can write in the chat box. True. Okay. So when, now reason, absence of positive knowledge. Absence of positive knowledge. Positive knowledge is not there. And will to infer. A desire to do the inference. So there is no positive knowledge, but there is a desire to understand and learn and infer. Its presence or absence are prerequisites for the inference to be drawn. Now, is this true or false? Is the reason R true or false? I'm only asking about R. So yes, R is also true. Okay, so why is it true? In Nyaya philosophy, I'll talk about the basics. What does it say? It says that when do we need to do inference? For things that are already known and understood, we don't need to do any argument. It is there means it is there. This is a mobile phone. It is a mobile phone, so it is a mobile phone. You don't need to argue over it. But whether the mobile phone is materialistic or whether it is spiritual, now that is a question which needs to be argued. So where do you need to argue? Where do you need to draw inference? You need to draw inference for those things for which there is no 100% conclusive statement, or for those things which you anyways do not know, which you are not aware of. Again, for that, there cannot be any inference. You cannot make any inference about things that anyways you do not know. For unknowable things and for 100% sure things, no inference is needed. Inference is needed for what? Where there is absence of confirmation, absence of positive knowledge, and you have the desire to infer whether this thing is present or not, whether this quality is present or not, whether this conclusion or hypothesis is present or not. Only then you would want to do inference. This is what Nyaya philosophy says, that when will you do inference? Only when you are not sure about something and you want to be sure about it, or you want to make an argument so that you can reach a conclusion. For things about which you already know they are true, and for things about which anyways they do not exist, you don't need to do inference. That is what Nyaya philosophy says. So based on that, this question has been asked in some year, and the answer is A. Both these statements are true and R is the correct explanation of it. So what are the certain psychological conditions under which inference takes place? Absence of positive knowledge and will to infer its presence or absence. For things which you anyways you do not know, and for things which you are 100% sure, you don't need to draw any inference. This we will do later on. Then we had also talked about minor term, major term, and middle term. So in Western syllogism, we have two premises and one conclusion. Whereas in Indian Nyaya philosophy, you have 5 statements. Okay? Pratijna, Hetu, Udaharan, Upanay, and Nigaman. Okay? It's 5. In Aristotelian or Western logical reasoning, you have 3 statements. 2 premises, major premise, minor premise, and conclusion. So there we had major term, minor term, and middle term. The definition of major term, minor term, and middle term is different in Nyaya philosophy or Indian logic system. The way the question is formatted, you will be able to understand whether this question pertains to Western syllogism or Indian syllogism, because there you will have statements related to square of opposition. You will have statements related to obversion, contraversion, contraposition. You will have three statements where there would be premises and conclusion. Here, you will have one single statement. And in one kind of policy, you have two statements. That's it. From one single statement, in one single sentence, you will have major term, minor term, and middle term. So what are this? So actually, ideally in Sanskrit, in Nyaya philosophy, they have been called Paksha, Sadhya, Hetu, or Tark, or Link. Paksh is the subject for which you are talking. Sadhya is whatever you are trying to prove. And Hetu, Tark, or Link is the reason given to prove the Sadhya. Paksha is your minor term. So when you say a statement like the hill has fire because it has smoke. The hill has fire because it has smoke. You are talking about hill, which is your paksh or minor term. The hill has fire, which is fire is your sadhya or major term, whatever you are trying to prove. And the reason is because it has smoke. So here smoke is your middle term, the reason or evidence. That is how a minor term, major term, and middle term is. Okay. Next. Mother is kind because she cooks food. So what are you talking about? Mother. Mother is your minor term. Paksha. What are we trying to prove? We are trying to prove that she is kind. So kindness is the property or thing that you are trying to prove. That is your major term. Because she cooks food. Cooking food is your middle term. It is the reason or evidence given to prove that she is kind. Clear with this concept? We had already discussed it. Okay, so based on this, we had solved a question. In light of Nyaya syllogism, which of the following are correct? Sadhya is the major term, Ling is the minor term, Hetu is the middle term, Paksha is the minor term, and Anuman is the inferential knowledge. So whatever inference we are drawing is called Anuman. So E is true, but apart from that, what is true? Okay, so apart from the statement B that Ling is the minor term, all other statements are correct. Ling is actually another name for the middle term. Hetu, Tark, or Ling. Okay. Now, after this recap, let's start again from where we should actually start the session. Indian logic system. Okay. So the Western logic system is called Aristotelian system of logic, and Indian logic system is what we are talking about in UGC NET is mainly the Nyaya philosophy. But apart from that, there are several schools of thoughts. What is a school of thought? A school of thought is a particular way of thinking. It is a specific approach to a particular field of study, and it represents a group of thinkers or scholars who share common ideas and concepts. So in olden times, a group of people who had a particular way of thinking and a specific approach in which they studied, whether it was religion, whether it was culture, whether it was reasoning, whether it was planets, whether it was mathematics, or even astrology. The way they perceived it, whatever they thought about it, the rules they made about it, whatever they considered true or false, that particular ways of thinking, when those group of people had the same thoughts, they followed the same way of thinking. This groups of people formed school of thoughts. Now, based on Vedas, Rigved, Samved, Atharvaved, Yajurved, there are 4 Veds. They are considered to be the basic foundation of Hinduism. They were created maybe thousands or thousands or millions of years ago. We are not sure. But based on that, the schools of thoughts were divided into 2 parts, Astic and Nastic. Now, this Astic and Nastic does not mean theist and atheist, one who believes in God, one who does not believe in God. No, it is not about that. This talks about Astic thought of schools of thought and Nastic schools of thought. So, Astic schools of thought are orthodox schools of thought, the older schools of thought. Gnostic schools of thought are unorthodox schools of thoughts. It was said that a few thousand years ago, when instead of understanding the reasoning behind things, when people started following rituals without understanding their importance or without understanding the logic behind it, unorthodox schools of thoughts came into existence who rejected certain key concepts of Hinduism, and then they built their own rule systems, and they refused or they did not accept Vedas as the final authority. Okay. So now, Astic schools of thoughts. Which are the Astic schools of thoughts? Astic schools of thoughts believe that there is a supreme being called Brahma. Our own self is Atma. They believe in karma and reincarnation depending on karma. Nyaya philosophy. It's also called Tarka Shastra, Praman Shastra, Hetu Vidya or Vad Vidya. It was developed by Gautam Rishi. Okay. Which is what we talk about the most. Whatever we are going to learn is mainly Nyaya philosophy. Vaisheshik was developed by Rishi Kannad. It was slightly before Nyaya philosophy. After that, Nyaya philosophy came. Sankhya, Kapil Muni, Yoga, the Yoga school of thought by Maharshi Patanjali. Mimamsa, the Mimamsa school of thought is divided into 2 parts, Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa. Okay, so Mimamsa is also called Purva Mimamsa, and Uttar Mimamsa is the later part, which is the school of thought that believes in Vedanta. The Gnostic or the unorthodox schools of thoughts, Buddhism by Gautam Buddha, Jainism, it was not developed by Lord Mahavir, it was propagated by him. He was the last or the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism. Charvak is another unorthodox philosophy developed by Rishi Brihaspati, but it was developed parallel to the Vedic philosophies, like it was there in olden times, and it says that we will only see or we will only believe in what we can see, what we can listen, what we can taste, what we can smell, what we can touch with our 5 senses. We will only believe in that, nothing else. So whatever is happening around you, this is the truth. Anything apart from that should not be believed. This was the Charvak philosophy. Now, in the Nyaya school of philosophy, now this philosophy is what they talk about is how to get knowledge. So what we are learning in logic systems is they talk about how do we get knowledge of anything in this world. So we can get knowledge of anything in this world in 6 ways. Veda says that we can get knowledge of anything in this world using 6 methods. Pratyaksh or perception, our 5 senses. Anuman, also called Anumiti in some questions, they either say it Anuman, they call it Anumiti, or they call it inference. The names of both Sanskrit and the English need to be remembered. Sometimes they don't give the Sanskrit equivalent of it. Okay, they'll just write the English words. So pratyaks or perception is using 5 senses. Anuman or anumiti or inference is when you look at something, think about it and draw an inference based on whatever previous knowledge is there. Upaman or upmiti is comparison between two things. Shabda is verbal testimony, written or oral testimony using words. Arthapti is postulation, guesswork. And anuplapti is deriving knowledge from lack or absence of something. These are the 6 pramanas. We will take all of them in detail. But before that, now all these 6 pramanas were not accepted by all schools of thoughts. Vedant, the Uttar Mimamsa accepts all the 6. That knowledge can be gained in all the 6 ways. But Nyaya philosophy accepts only Pratyaksh, Anuman, Upman and Shabda as valid proofs or valid ways to derive knowledge. It says that Arthapti, guesswork and Anuplabdhi, knowledge from absence of something, is not valid. Arthapti and Anuplabdhi is not valid. Same for Vaisheshik. It also accepts this 4 and does not accept Arthapti and Anuplabdhi. This, why I am sharing this? Because questions are asked based on this information. Okay, it's not that I am trying to increase your general knowledge. They do ask questions like, Nyaya philosophy believes in this pramanas. And then they will either write Arthapti or Anuplabdhi, and then you have to not include that. Or in which kind of pramanas does Nyaya philosophy does not believe in? These questions have been asked. Okay. Sankhya believes in Pratyaksh, Anuman and Shabd. Sankhya philosophy does not believe in Upman or comparison. Buddhism believes in Pratyaksh and Anuman. And it has its own concept called apoha, which is deriving knowledge from non-existence of something. You don't need to memorize the meaning of it, but you just need to remember that apoha is a concept which is accepted by Buddhism. So there has been a question asked in which, what are the proofs of, what are the ways of knowledge or inference accepted in Buddhism? So the answer was apoh and pratyaksh out of the given options, that way. So please remember that. Jainism believes in pratyaksh, anuman and shabda. Charvak believes only in pratyaksh. So pratyaksh, something that is felt using our 5 senses, is accepted by all schools of philosophy. The only school of philosophy that does not accept anuman is Charvak. It does not accept inference drawn using prior knowledge as a valid way to learn something. Okay, so there is also a question asked where all philosophies were given and options were given and descriptions were given, where it was written that Charvak accepts when there is an inference from something. So the statement is false, or vice versa. So a Charvak does not believe in inference. Okay. Clear so far? Yes? Okay. Next. Now let's talk about each of the pramanas in detail. Now this is praman or proof is Hindi. In Sanskrit, the meaning that we take here is not proof. It is means of knowledge. The way using which you get knowledge is praman. It is not proof कि आपने ये काम किया उसका प्रमाण क्या है. What is the proof of what you have done? It does not mean proof here. It means means of knowledge, the way to gain knowledge. In the Nyaya philosophy, or when it comes to knowledge, Indian logic system, praman is get means of acquiring or deriving knowledge. First praman is pratyaksh, perception. Knowledge gained through direct sensory experience, such as seeing, hearing, or touching, it is the strongest praman. If there is a knowledge that is derived by inference and there is knowledge derived by pratyaksh, pratyaksh is always considered more stronger. For example, someone tells you that ABC person stole your book. Now, this is shabd. You are listening to them, okay? But you don't know if it's true or not. So it will not be called shabd because shabd has to come from an expert person. But what you are doing is listening to someone who's telling you. If you have prior experience or prior knowledge that she or he was stealing things of some other student also, then maybe you can derive inference from it. But if you do not have any such previous inference, then you can probably do guesswork. That's arthapti. But now you see that person stealing something from your bag with your own eyes. That is perception. That is the strongest praman. Or you see that not that ABC, but XYZ person is opening your bag and stealing something. So that is your pratyaksh praman, direct perception that that person was not stealing, this other person has been stealing your things. And the knowledge gained through pratyaksh praman is the strongest of all. Okay? Clear with the meaning of pratyaksh praman? Okay. Next. So pratyaksh praman is of two kinds, two types. Savikalpa, nirvikalpa. Savikalpa is further divided into laukik and alaukik. And alaukik can be perceived in three ways: samanya lakshan, gyan lakshan, and yogaj. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. Okay. Let's understand all these concepts one by one. So first, let's understand what is savikalpa and nirvikalpa praman. Savikalpa is discriminate, definite, 110%. It can be explained to some other person. Now you have seen something, you can go and tell other person that this person was wearing this kind of dress. I saw his or her hand going inside my bag, opening the chain, going inside the bag, taking out my book, closing the bag, and then stealthily walking away. You can describe it like this. There are distinguishing features like color, shape, size, action, whatever was done. You have the concepts in your mind to be able to explain it. You know what it is. Whereas nirvikalpa or indiscriminate, which is also called sometimes indefinite perception, cannot be explained. It does not have distinguishing features. Like the Advait school of Vedanta says, Brahma or the God and Atma, the individual self. Atma is the same as Brahma. Atma is a part of Brahma. And everything that we see around is Maya or illusion. Now you cannot describe this to someone else. You can probably perceive that yes, everything around me is Maya, but this is not something that you can describe, that Maya looks like this, Maya was doing this, Maya. This is not Maya the person. We are talking about illusion. And it is not a magician's illusion that you can describe that this is how the trick was played. How do you describe it? There's no way to describe it. That is why it is called indefinite perception or nirvikalpa. Okay. Now our importance is on savikalpa because it has got a lot of branches that we need to think of. Savikalpa is of two kinds, laukik and alaukik. Here alaukik does not mean divine, something that happens in heaven. No. Laukik is ordinary perception, alaukik is extraordinary perception. Laukik is something that you have already seen or felt or experienced in life. Alaukik is something that you have not seen or felt or experienced in this world so far. So for me, I have never gone to the North Pole. So I have not seen those lights which are there in the night, the green, blue color lights, aurora borealis. I have not seen it. I know nuclear weapons exist in this world. A bomb was, what should I say? There was an attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Chernobyl nuclear reactor had a leakage and there were effects of it. But I have not experienced that. I have not seen that. So that is an alaukic experience. Alaukic perception, alaukic perception for me. COVID-19, I have experienced. That is Laukic perception. I can describe everything about it. Antarctica, we know that it is there. People go there, but I have not gone there. So for me, it is alaukic. It is extraordinary perception. I do not know how it looks, feels, tastes, or smells because I have not experienced it directly. Clear with the concept of Laukic and alaukic? Okay. So now for an experience, an extraordinary perception that I have not experienced in this world so far, how can I talk about this alaukic, which I have not experienced myself? 3 distinctions. First, samanya lakshan. Okay. So how do I gain knowledge of alaukic? Identified through common properties even when seeing it for the first time. So your friend tells you that, your colleague tells you that on my table, in the drawer, there is register of semester 1. Can you please get that for me? You have not seen that register. You do not know about it. But you know what a register is. You know how semester 1 is written, how it looks like. You know where the table is, and you know how to open a drawer. So based on that, you can go to the table, open the drawer, look at all those books which are registers, and on that, you know how to read Sem1, so you can open that register. You are looking at it for the first time, but still you can gain knowledge about it, even when seeing it for first time, because the identification is there through common properties with the word register and with the spelling of Sem1 or semester 1. That is called samanya lakshan. You are doing it for the first time, you are seeing it or experiencing it for the first time, but you have knowledge about things which are similar, which have similar properties to it. So that's why you are able to understand that this is the register of first semester. That is called samanya lakshan. Gyan lakshan is when you have deep knowledge about something, although you have not experienced it. For example, a doctor is checking the pulse of a patient, or a doctor is checking the reports of a patient and says that they probably have a tumor somewhere in whatever is shown, let's say in the liver, or let's say in the brain. Brain tumor is the most common one when it comes to movies. So let's take brain tumor for now. So the doctor sees the picture and says that this is brain tumor. Now it could be a new doctor who is looking at the X-ray for the first time, the X-ray of the brain tumor for the first time. But he has read about it. He has knowledge about it. He or she has knowledge that this is how an X-ray of brain tumor should look. So although they have not seen it before, they can identify it based on their knowledge that this is brain tumor. Like, let's say about cold. So cold is something that you experience with touch, with your skin, its temperature. But when you see a glass of water which has droplets around it, you can understand that this glass must be having cold water. It will feel cold to touch. When you can pass the knowledge from one sense, from the sense of touch to the sense of eyes, just by looking at it, you can guess, not just guess, you can understand, you can perceive with your eyes that this is cold, because you are actually seeing those droplets of water which are formed because moisture accumulates on that cold glass. That is Gyan Lakshan. Samanya Lakshan is when you have an idea of how the things might look. Gyan Lakshan is when you have knowledge, a knowledge where you can transfer almost from one sense to another sense, deep knowledge. And Yogaj is knowledge attained by yoga or supernatural perception. So to give an example which includes all three, let's say a person is sitting with head held in their hands. Samanya Lakshan would be, you know that this probably looks like the feature of sadness. So you would say, are you sad? So based on your knowledge, that your understanding that this kind of facial expression is usually sadness, even though it might be a stranger whom you have seen for the first time and you have not seen how their sad face looks like. But there are common facial features when it comes to sadness. So based on that, you have guessed it. Gyan Lakshan would be probably a psychologist looking at that person and saying, are you in depression? Because now they are able to analyze even deeper because they have knowledge about it. And a yogaj person can look at them and say that you are going to die in 3 months. Because you are depressed, you will probably do something and then you will die. They have that intuition about what is going to happen in the future. Supernatural perception. These are the 3 ways alaukik perception is done. Clear? Okay. So, Pratyaksh Praman using senses. Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa. Savikalpa is something definite which you can describe. Nirvikalpa is something that you can probably experience but cannot describe. There are no distinct characteristics of touch, smell, color, action that you can say. Laukik and alaukik. Laukik that you have directly perceived through your senses. Alaukik, extraordinary perception that you have not perceived through your senses before. But when you perceive it for the first time, based on general properties of universal properties of classes, you can perceive it, or you have knowledge about it, that is why you perceive it, or based on intuition, you perceive it. That is yogaj. This is the entire theory of Pratyaksh Praman. Clear with this? Okay. So now let's solve a few questions. According to Naiyayikas, like Nyaya philosophy books, when we perceive one pot, we perceive the universal potness as its defining property due to Yogaj, Anuman, Gyan Lakshan, Samanya Lakshan. JNANA is Gyan Lakshan, Jnan or Gyan. What would be the answer here? The answer here is D. The universal potness of its defining property. How does a pot look like? It's usually made of clay and or ceramic, and it goes like this. This is the shape of a pot. It should be able to hold water or a liquid in it. That is the universal potness. This is how the pot looks. Samanya Lakshan. Okay, that's your answer. Clear? See, perceptions of universal or classes, common properties, even when saying for the first time. So although you have not seen this pot before, where you know how a pot is. So that universal potness is a quality that refers to Samanya Lakshan. Next, The second praman and the most lengthy and important of all is anuman or inference. Knowledge gained by drawing conclusions from observed facts or premises that are known before. Anu is before, man is knowledge. So knowledge that is gained based on something that you already know before. You knew something, and based on something that you knew before, now you are gaining new knowledge. Now you are drawing a new conclusion. That is anuman. For example, a teacher inferring whether a student is sincere or not based on their behavior in the classroom. Because you know that the sincere students sit on the first bench, they take notes and they listen to you with rapt attention and they ask questions politely whenever they are in doubt. Whereas the insincere students sit on the last bench, they create a lot of hula in the class. They all have weird doubts to ask, which always disrupt your flow of the class. Based on these characteristics that you know of students, you can infer whether a student is sincere or not, right? Anuman, that maybe this student is sincere, maybe this student is not a sincere one. Clear with this concept? Teachers. Okay, so see, wherever you have the word inference in Indian logic system question, it is referring to anuman. Okay? It is not referring to the Western syllogism. Whenever you read the word inference or infer, it is talking about anuman. Now, anuman is of three types. Anuman is not of three types. The classification of anuman is done in three ways: psychological, vyapti, and inference. Oh, sorry, it's not inference. It's induction. Psychological, vyapti, and induction. So vyapti is there in the next slide. Don't worry. It was too much to show in one slide. So I thought I'll divide it. So let's start with the first classification. Swarth Anuman and Prarth Anuman. What is Swarth Anuman? What is Prarth Anuman? Swarth Anuman is when you explain things to yourself. Like, I want to eat an ice cream. So I tell myself that I want to eat an ice cream because I have taken so many classes. Finally, the class has ended. Now I want to celebrate the successful completion of the course. So I want to eat an ice cream at 9 or 10 p.m. in the night. Today night, I want to go and eat the ice cream. That is what I explained to myself. An informal explanation to myself. I've accepted it. Great, done. Because the class is complete today, I'll go and eat an ice cream. Now I tell this to my husband that let's go have an ice cream. He's like, at 10 in the night? Why? It's so cold here. You are so prone to cough. Why do you want to eat ice cream? Now I can't just tell him that now because I have completed the course, I want to have an ice cream. What kind of logic is that? I have to sit and probably explain that I have done so much hard work. Ice cream means celebration for me. So in order to celebrate, I want to do this. This is really important for me. It would make me happy. I'll ensure that I will not get cold the next day. Something of that sort. I'll have to give him a long, proper, structured explanation. Pararth Anuman. For others, it is a formal explanation. Clear with the concept of Swarth Anuman and Pararth Anuman? Great. On a lighter note, I will not be eating ice cream. I will immediately get cough and cold. I wait for ice creams to come to room temperature and become liquid. I am really scared of ice creams. Okay. Please solve this question. In Swarth Anuman, inference for oneself, we do not require a formal statement of the different members of inference, according to Nyaya view of inference. Swarth Anuman is a psychological process. So you need to choose which of the statements is correct, or whether both of them are correct, or whether both of them are incorrect. What's the answer? Both are incorrect. Everyone agrees that both are incorrect. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is not. Okay. Oh, both the statements are correct. Someone who wants to go for D, that's the only option remaining. Okay. So let's talk about Swarth Hanuman, explanation to oneself. When I explain to myself that I want to eat ice cream, did I think of structure? Did I think of a formal explanation? No. The class is over, I'll have an ice cream. That's it. So Swarth Hanuman does not require you to give a pratijna, a hetu, and then an udaharan, and then say that now upna is there, and finally we reach the nigaman, the conclusion that yes, ice cream needs to be eaten. And also, if you see here, what kind of classification is this? Psychological. Let's come back to the question again. We do not require a formal statement of the different members of inference according to Nyaya view of inference, and it is a psychological process. The answer is both the statements are correct. Even if you do not understand that when it says that we do not require a formal statement or a formal inference and it is psychological, these are the two properties of Swarth Hanuman. Clear with this question? Next question. In classical Indian philosophy, Swarth for oneself and Pararth for others are kinds of which of the following praman? It is a classification of which kind of praman? Which praman are we talking about? Anuman, right? So these questions have been asked before. Okay, so Swarth and Pararth. These are the two Anumans. Next, let's take Vyapti and then we will take induction. So Vyapti, based on Vyapti, we have two classifications. But before that, let's see what is Vyapti. So it is said that for proving anything in Anuman, there are two ways to prove it. Vyapti, which is called in English as invariable concomitance. So whenever you read this term, invariable concomitance in the question, they do not write Vyapti every time. They call it invariable concomitance sometimes. So there you need to be clear that this is talking about Vyapti. What is Vyapti? Vyapti is a general connection between two things, like smoke and fire. So whenever there is smoke, then there has to be a fire somewhere. The statement of this kind, the general connection between these two things, wherever there is, what should I say? Whenever there is a day, after that there will be night. Whenever there is a night, after that there will be day. There is a connection between day and night. So that is Vyapti, the general connection between two things. Now, what is Paksha Dharmat? There is no classification or anything more based on Paksha Dharmat, but sometimes the definition, an example is asked where you need to match A with B based on Paksha Dharmat. So for that, you need to know the meaning of this term. Whenever we infer something specific, because we see it, because we see something there, Vyapti is about connection, that usually there is some connection between two things. And Paksh Dharmat is because we see something, because our senses perceive something, then we make an inference. So we saw the smoke on the hill. So now we are inferring that when there is smoke, there will be fire. We are not connecting the smoke and the fire. We saw something specific. We saw the smoke there. That is why we are inferring there is fire. It's a bit confusing, but Paksh Dharmat, only this much you need to understand. We infer something specific because we see something there. After this, the topic of Paksh Dharmat ends. What continues is the topic of Vyapti, which is our main central topic. Vyapti is the general connection between two things, and the entire inference is depending on this connection between two things. Okay? Clear with this too? Okay. So now that you know what Vyapti is the connection between two things. The first classification is, I don't know, why is it first? Okay, let's take the second classification first. It's actually the classification which was supposed to be written first, but then there was a lot of terms, so I changed the sequence. Samavyapti and Asam or Visham Vyapti. Samavyapti, Asam or Visam Vyapti. Usually it is called Asam Vyapti. Sometimes it can also be given in question as Visam Vyapti. What is Samavyapti? Samavyapti is about cause, reason, cause and effect, not this reason, cause and effect. Okay? So, Samavyapti, the cause and effect is such that the cause gives the effect, and in reverse, the effect can also become the cause which gives the effect. When two things are always together, like nameable and knowable. Whatever is nameable is knowable, and what is knowable is nameable. Another example is day and night. After day, there will be night, and after night, there will also be day. So the cause and effect goes both sides. That is Samvyapti. Clear with this? Samavyapti. Asamvyapti is opposite. It's not opposite, but it is only in single direction. Whenever there is fire, there is smoke. But, reverse. Wherever there is smoke, there has to be a fire. But wherever there is fire, it is not necessary that you have smoke. Every time you start your gas LPG at home, does it start smoking? Does the gas start smoking? No, right? So wherever there is fire, it is not essential that there is smoke. But wherever there is smoke, you cannot have smoke without fire. बिना आग के धुआं नहीं हो सकता, but बिना धुएं की आग हो सकती है. So this is not parallel, like both sides. It is only one side. The cause to effect is only one side. It is not both sides, like day and night. That after day there will be night, after night there will be day. I hope it is clear. I have a doubt with the words. What is confusing me is probably, just give me a moment. Okay, so this causal and coexistent needs to be checked. But Samvyapti and Asamvyapti, the meaning is all correct. Okay. The next classification. Purvavat, Sheshvat, and Samanyot Drashta. The second classification is Purvavat. If you know Hindi, Purva is before. Sheshvat, here probably you can say after. And Samanyodrashta. Let's see what does it mean. Purvavat. Purvavat inference, Purvavat Vyapti is inferring something in advance, before. Figure out something we haven't seen based on what we already see. You see a lot of dark clouds. In future, there will be rain. You are inferring something in advance. Purvavat inference. You infer something later is Sesvat inference. That you see that the river water is not clear, it is very muddy and it is going very fast. So you guess, I would rather say you infer, it's not guess because that is a different praman. We infer something that must be based on what we have seen. You see muddy water, you see fast running water, that can only be when there is a lot of rain and it has churned the waters of the river. So based on that muddy water, we infer that it might have rained already before. That is Sesvat inference. You infer something at a later stage. And when you infer something in advance, it is Purvavat. Clear with Purvavat and Seshvat? Okay. Now Samanyot Drashta. Samanyot Drashta, no? It is Samanyot Drashta. Okay. Samanyato Drashta inference is coexistence. There is no cause and effect relationship, but the things are going in a pattern. For example, movement and displacement, like movement of the moon in the sky. You see every day that the moon moves a little bit here to here, here to here, here to here. You see that the shape of the moon is changing every day. So you notice that there is some pattern which is happening in the sky. That every day the size and shape of the moon is changing, increasing and then decreasing and then increasing. So that is one example. Another example is cloven hoofs and horns. All the animals who have cloven hoofs are hoofs which are cut in between, which are divided in between. They are called cloven hoofs. They are in the legs. In Hindi we call it khur. जिसके खुर होते हैं उसके सींग होते हैं. The animals who have cloven hoofs have horns, and the animals who have horns will have cloven hoofs. So when you see the horn of the animal, you can infer that it must be having cloven hoofs. And if you see the cloven hoof, you can infer that it must be having a horn. It's not cause and effect. It is coexistence of two things. Clear with this? Okay. So that is Vyapti. Vyapti is the relation between two things. Samavyapti, where the cause and effect is on both sides. Both the things can become cause and effect of each other. Asamvyapti, where the cause and effect relation is clear. Only this X can be the cause of Y cannot be the cause of X. That is asamvyapti or visamvyapti. Some, equal. Asam, not. Purvavat, when you infer something in advance, before the thing has happened. Sesvat, when you infer something later, after the thing has happened. And Samanyato Drashta, where it is coexisting. It is not before, it is not after, it is not cause and effect. Okay? We have already talked about the 5 propositions of inference and the 3 terms of inference. So now based on this, a few questions. In Samanya Drashta inference, the universal relationship between the major and the middle term depends on causal uniformity. What is the major term? What is the middle term? Depends on causal uniformity. means cause and effect, causal uniformity. The middle term of the inference reason are, the middle term of the inference is related to the major term, neither as a cause nor as an effect. You can guess as per whatever you have understood. The major term is the sadhya, whatever we are going to prove. Like when we say the hill has smoke, so it has fire. So, the hill has fire because it has smoke. Fire is what we are trying to prove, the major term. Smoke is the middle term, the reason. So the relationship between the major and the middle term is on causal uniformity. Second, the middle term of the inference, here the smoke, is related to the major term, that is fire, neither as a cause nor as an effect. What happens in Samanyata Drashta? A. In Samanyata Drashta, does that happen? Do they have cause and effect relationship? Because the animal has hooves, it has horns. Otherwise, it would not be having horns. Is there such a cause and cause effect? No. Inference. Notice things in a pattern. No cause effect relation. Okay. That is why here your answer is A is false. Samanyata Drashta depends on consistent observation or coexistence of things. It does not depend on cause and effect relation. What depends on cause and effect relation? Purvavat and Sheshvat. That depends on cause and effect. You infer something because something has happened, Purvavat and Sheshvat, or something is going to happen. The middle term of the inference is related to major term, neither as cause nor an effect, because the relation is of regularity, repeated over time. Every time an animal has cloven hoof, it has horn. If it has horn, it has cloven hoof. There is a regularity in which the way moon moves over the sky. So A is false, R is true. I hope that clarifies the concept of Samanyata Drashta a little bit. Clear with why the answer is D? Okay, so see, this is philosophy. You will have to use your neural cells. And philosophy is always abstract. This was a question which was asked last year. When inference is last year or last to last year, I guess. When inference is based not on causation, but on uniformity of coexistence. Not on causation, but on uniformity of coexistence, as in the case of inferring cloven hoofs of an animal by its horns, it is called, what is it called? Purvavat anuman, Sheshvat anuman, Samanyato Drashta, Pakshadharman. It is called Samanyato Drashta. I hope this makes it clear. These are cloven hoofs, okay? Cloven hoof is the hoof of the animal, which is split or divided into two parts. So just observe the cows near your cows and goats, if you can see, or even sheep. If they will have cloven hoofs, they will have horns. Now there's one more classification of anuman or inference, which is based on induction. So what is that? Let's see. Keval Anvayi, Kevalavya Atireki and Anvay Vyatireki. Keval Vyatireki Keval Anvay, Keval Vyatireki, and Anvay Vyatireki. Okay. So Keval Anvay. Now here, this is based on relationships of the middle term and major term. But here it is such that the hetu, the reason, is only positively related to the satya. So if I say a hill has fire because it has smoke, the relationship between fire and smoke is such that smoke is related only positively to the fire. Where there is no smoke, there can still be fire. It is not negatively related. All knowable objects are nameable. Pot is a knowable object, so pot is nameable. This is an example which has been asked for Keval and Vai in exam. All knowable objects are nameable. The pot is a knowable object, therefore the pot is a nameable object. This is a positive relation. Now, when there is a negative relation between the middle term and the major term, whatever we are trying to prove and the reason that we are trying to give, when they are negatively related, it is based on the invariable concomitance, that is the vyapti, between the middle term, which is established by the method of agreement in absence. Since there can be no positive instances of agreement, when those two things can never be together, we say because there is smoke, we can infer that there is fire because they are positively related. Now, when we say that you can never have, what should I say? Nowadays, so rains happen in summer season. Otherwise, I would have said that you cannot have rains in summer season, because rains and summer season never go together. But that would be a wrong example now. So I'm thinking of two things which would never go together. One example here is no non-soul substance has life. These are questions which have been asked in exam. They ask this kind of examples. No non-soul substance has life. So something that does not have soul, it does not have life. No non-soul means everything that has soul has life. So no non-soul substance has life. All beings possess, their possessing animal functions have life. So who has life? Someone who has animal functions. Who does not have life? Non-soul. Therefore, all beings possessing animal functions have a soul. Because non-soul does not have life, so soul has life, that is proved. A negative relation of non-soul with living beings. Non-soul and living beings are negatively related. If you have non-soul, you cannot have life. And if you have life, you cannot have non-soul. There has to be a soul. Does this make things clear? If A is there, B cannot be there. And if B is there, then A cannot be there. There is a negative relation between them. Let's say in India, in a cricket match, if India wins the match, Australia loses the match. And if Australia loses the match, Australia wins the match, India loses the match. Both of them cannot win at the same time. There is a negative relation of winning and losing. Okay? Both of them cannot win. Like you cannot say that if India wins the match, Australia will also win. If India loses the match, Australia will also lose. No, there's a negative relation. Anvay Vyatireki. Now, this is based on a middle term which is both positive and negatively related to the major term. If you see smoke, you can infer that there is fire. If you don't see fire, you can infer that there is no smoke. Okay, so even if you add no to the statement, if you see no smoke, you can infer that there is no fire. If you say a statement where positive and negative both versions are true, that is called anvay vyatireki. It is a stronger inference. What another example I can give you from our daily lives? If there is electricity, the television will work. If there is no electricity, the television will not work. Okay? It's not that if electricity is there, television will not work. If electricity is not there, television will work. That would become our second kind, the keval anvay vyatireki. But here there is a positive and negative relation. If electricity is there, TV works. If it is not there, TV does not work. So that is a anvay vyatireki kind of relationship. Does that make things clear? Electricity and television? Yes, no? When I ask you to solve the previous year questions, your concepts would become more clearer. Okay. And remember, middle term is hetu or reason. Major term is what you were trying to prove, sadhya. Paksha is the minor term, the subject. Here, usually it is the minor term because we are not talking much about its relationship with the middle term. In the Nyaya system, what is an inference called when it is based on middle term being only positively related to major term? Keval Anvai, Keval Vyatireki, Anvai Vyatireki, Vyatirek Anvai. The fourth name does not exist. Okay? It's just made up. The first three are the types. Only positively related is one person. Everyone else. Keval Anvai, only positively related. Keval Vyatireki, only negatively related. Keval Anvai, both positive negative correlation. Sorry, Anvay Vyatireki, both negative positive correlation. Next, Sarth Anuman is from the previous classification. Pararth Anuman, Keval Anvai Anuman, and Keval Vyatireki Anuman. Remember the names? Keval Anvai, Keval Vyatireki, and Anvay Vyatireki. This is how the sequence goes. Positive, negative, both positive, negative. Sarth Anuman, Pararth Anuman, Keval Anvay Anuman, Keval Vyatireki Anuman. Middle term is always and only negatively related to major term. The terms agree only in presence, there being no instance of their agreement in absence. They could have said it is positively related, but they said that agree only in presence. No formal statement of the different members of inference. No formal statement. Presented in language and has to be done only to convince others. What's the answer? Did you give the answer and I missed it? If yes, then please answer it again. Okay, so let's go the other way around. See, Sarth Anuman, no formal statement. It's for your own self. Pararth Anuman is presented in language and has to be done only to convince other people. Par, Sa, par, others. Keval Anvai, The terms agree only in presence, positively. And keval vyatireki, middle term is only negatively related. If it was both positively and negatively related, it would be called anvay vyatireki. Clear with this question? This is a question which has been asked in exam. One person? Okay. Next, the third praman. We talked about pratyaksh, what we can see, feel, touch. Anuman, what we can infer based on prior knowledge. The third is upaman, knowledge gained by comparing two things and noticing their similarities or differences. For example, Mars environment is like a desert. Now we have not seen Mars. Okay. So how do you gain an understanding or knowledge of it? By noticing the similarities or differences. It is called comparison, but you can also equate it to analogy. Comparison and analogy, both words are used for upaman. Comparison and analogy, both words are used for upaman praman. So Mars environment is like a desert. You have seen a desert, you know how a desert is. So when I say Mars environment is like a desert, I'm comparing it to give you knowledge of how the Mars environment looks. Mimamsas call this as analogy, and Buddhism accepts Upman as one of the pramans. That yes, it is one of the pramans. For example, a wild cow. If someone tells you that a wild cow looks just like a cow, if you go in the forest and if you see a wild cow, you will be able to identify it because of comparison. That the wild cow looks similar to the normal cow, the domestic cow. Now suppose you are buying a phone. Both the phones are newly launched. You have no idea of like what's the rating. So what would you do? You will compare the features. You will say the processor, the camera size. You will hold it in your hand and compare it with what you have previously used. That okay, if this pixel is there, it must be good. If this must be there, it must be good. Does it have a good selfie camera? If you're someone who's for selfies, does it have good processor speed? If you are someone who likes playing games, can it handle battery for longer time? If you are someone who uses your smartphone a lot. So for something that you don't know, you are comparing it to the previous phone experience that you have used. That is upaman. Clear with this? Upman is comparison or analogy. You will usually find words like similar to. Clear with this? Third praman? Okay. The next is shabd or verbal testimony. Now here, because it is called verbal, it does not mean oral. It means both written and oral. Just like we had verbal communication, non-verbal communication. Verbal communication included oral communication and written communication, wherever words are used. And non-verbal was body language and everything. Okay. So here also, shabda or verbal testimony means oral and written testimony. Knowledge gained through the words or testimony of reliable experts or authorities. It could be written or oral. That is words of scriptures and words of trustworthy person or expert. For example, when a child is small, he or she is told that these are your parents. And they'll accept it. Even if they are adopted, if they are told in childhood that these are your parents, they will never question it. Shabda Praman. This is your religion. This is what we believe about God. This is how we will eat our food. If you are told in childhood that non-veg is bad, for the rest of your life, mostly you are going to believe it is bad. If you are told that It is normal to eat non-veg, and those who eat vegetarian are just those who eat just vegetarian are pretentious people. Then that is what you are going to believe for a very long time, unless you maybe go and find out other pramanas. So words of books, scriptures, and words of trustworthy person, that is called Shabda Praman. It is accepted in Nyaya philosophy. As interpretation of words can differ, Shabda Praman is not accepted in unorthodox schools of thought, especially Buddhism. They don't accept it. Okay. There are two types of Shabda Praman. Drashtarth, which relates to perceptible objects, things that you can see, touch, feel. Adrishtarth or Adrashta, which relates to imperceptible objects. Like honesty is the best policy. If you will study hard for your 12th standard board, your life is set. Something that you cannot see, but it can be understood. And who is the one who tells this? Our parents and also our tuition teachers. Shabda Praman, we believe that and work hard. And what do we get when we come to college? बस 4 साल और पढ़ लो, 5 साल और पढ़ लो, and see, we are still preparing for UGC NET. Okay, so that is Shabda Praman. Clear with the concept of Shabda Praman? Okay. The next, Arthapti or postulation. Arthapti is knowledge gained by making assumption, guesswork, inference based on circumstantial evidence. Okay, it's a lot of guesswork, there are a lot of possibilities, and you are filling the story in the blanks. She is getting fat, so she must be eating a lot. She can also have a hypothyroidism. She can also be diabetic. She can also have hormonal issues. But what comes to our mind first? She is getting fat, so she must be eating a lot. That is called Arthapti. It is accepted in Vedant, not in Nyaya philosophy. They say that it is an invalid Praman. Arthapti is not accepted. Okay? The English word for it is postulation. Please remember, a lot of times they have used the word postulation and they have not given the word Arthapti in options. Clear with the concept of Arthapti? If not, you will soon be when we solve the questions. It's one of their favorites. Anuplabdhi, non-apprehension. Anuplabdhi is called non-apprehension. It's the last and sixth kind of Praman. Knowledge gained by the absence of perception or lack of evidence of something. The floor does not have water. The road rather does not have water. So it was dry weather last night. Yesterday night it must not have rained. Yesterday night it must not have been humid. So the road is not wet. So because it is not wet, you are gaining the knowledge that probably it had not rained yesterday night. Anuplabdhi is also not accepted as a Praman by Nyaya school of philosophy. Arthapti, it's not called Arthapatti, okay? Its pronunciation is Arthapti. Arthapti and Anuplabdhi. Uplabd nahi hai. It is not available. Anuplabdhi, an unavailability of something or absence of something gives you perception or knowledge. Clear with Anuplabdhi and Arthapti? Okay. Next. So to recall, there are 6 kinds of Praman: Pratyaksh, perception; Anuman, inference; Upaman, comparison; Shabd, verbal testimony. They are considered valid in Nyaya epistemology. Epistemology is school of thought, philosophy. Invalid, Arthapti, postulation, and Anuplabdhi, non-apprehension. They are not considered valid in Nyaya. But in Vedanta, they are considered valid. Now let's solve a few questions based on Praman. When I asked my friend, for my way about his residence over the phone. Which of the following instruments of knowledge is used by me to hear and understand what my friend says, as per classical Indian school of logic? Over the phone, I asked my friend, tell me the way to your home, to your residence. So when I heard and understood the way to the residence to his home, what was used? Perception, inference, postulation, verbal testimony. Okay, how many senses do we have apart from eyes? What are other sense organs? Now let's think again. What's the answer? Perception. Pratyaksh. Your friend is directly telling you in your own ears that this is the way to my home. Verbal testimony is books and scriptures or words of experts, trustworthy person. Like Valmiki wrote Ramayana, we trust Valmiki. Tulsi ji wrote Ramayana, we trust Tulsi ji. That is Shabda Praman. Okay? Here, he is directly telling you this is the way, come to my home. So it is perception. Again, I would request you to remember, we are talking about philosophy. Okay? So please remember the answers to all these questions. I have taken a lot of effort to collect all the questions so that at least for these questions, you should not be marking the wrong answer. Next, according to Nyay, classical Indian school of logic, which means of knowledge or praman is used in the following argument? The world is an effect. The world is an effect and hence it must have an efficient cause like all objects. For example, pots, cloth, etc. That efficient cause is God. What kind of praman are we using? The world is an effect, therefore it must have a cause, and the cause is God. It is logical reasoning. We are not doing guesswork. We are logically inferring something. So that is Hanuman. We are not seeing anything through our eyes, so perception nahi ho sakta. Arthapti, because it is logical, the formulation of the argument is logical, so it cannot be arthapti. There is no comparison here and no verbal testimony. So the answer is inference. Next, an American is told by his friend that Asian buffalo is like bison. Bison is an animal. In such and such respects. So they are similar in such and such. Bison looks similar to buffalo, Asian buffalo in this aspects. When the American visits Asia and comes across a buffalo, he comes to know. We are not using the word he realizes. We say he comes to know. Why? Because Praman gives you knowledge. He comes to know that the animal seen by him is buffalo. Which of the following means of knowledge is used in this instant? Which Praman is used? Comparison or upaman. Next, according to classical Indian philosophy, the source of knowledge based on cognition of an object similar to another one which was already known to the cognizer. Cognition is using your brain and understanding things. Knowledge of something. Knowing something. So the source of knowledge based on cognition, understanding, identification, using your brain to know it, similar to another one, is Shabd Pratyaksh Anuman Upman. there's something called similar to another one. So when I say similar to another one, it becomes upaman or comparison. Anuman is inference. Oh, I was harping on that cognition to explain you the meaning of the word cognition and cognizer. Cognizer is the one who recognizes. Okay. The focus here should be on similar to another one. So you should not get confused when they use words like this, cognition and cognizer. Okay. Next. Classical Indian logicians, Nayayikas, define upaman or comparison as the cognition of the new object through similarity, known by another means of cognition. That is statement 1. Statement 2. Nayayikas consider upaman as a type of inductive reasoning and therefore view it as a type of inference, anuman only. What is true, what is false? Okay, so see, Upman is comparison. We recognize a new object through similarity of something that we know. So statement 1 is true. Now they say Upman is a type of Anuman, but we have seen the classification of Anuman. Upman is actually a third different kind of Praman. So statement 2 cannot be true. So statement 2 is false. So statement 1 is correct. Statement 2 is incorrect. Analogy roughly corresponds to which of these? See, Anuman and Upaman are also given as Anumiti and Upamiti in question. Analogy means, what is analogy? Comparison. Upaman, Upamiti. I was wondering if I had marked it wrongly. Okay, next. When I left my office few minutes ago, that the previous question, the answer is Upamiti or Upman, okay? It's not Anumiti. When I left my office few minutes ago, there was no coffee on my table. Now, these kind of stories have been asked in exam. When I left my office few minutes ago, there was no coffee on the table. When I return, there is a cup of coffee lying on my table. Therefore, I conclude that someone must have brought the cup of coffee during my absence in the office. What is used here? Which praman is used to draw this knowledge? Think of it. Pratyaksh, Arthapti, Upaman, Anuplapti. Okay, so see, the answer is Arthapti. Why? Because you are guessing that someone must have brought a cup of coffee. Anuplapti is when the cup does not exist, but here the cup is existing on the table. Now we have to draw the knowledge of why the cup is existing on the table. So it cannot be Anuplapti, the cup is existing. And Anuvan is based on some logic, some relation, some vyapti. There is no relation here. Someone must have brought it for me is completely your guesswork. The cup could also have walked and come to your table. So that is not possible. But here there is no inference. Okay, so the answer is Arthapti. Another story by UGC NET. When I closed my eyes, the cat was sitting on the table. When I opened my eyes, I found it sitting on the chair. Therefore, I can conclude that the cat must have moved from the table to the chair while my eyes were closed. Pratyaksh, Upaman, Anuplapti, Arthapti. Which one of this? Arthapti, the answer is true. Because someone could have lifted the cat and moved her. She may not have walked on her own. So that is guesswork. Okay. Next, any object thrown upwards starts to come downwards after reaching a particular height. Therefore, there must be some force that is pulling that object towards the Earth's surface. Now, what is this? Arthapti, Upaman, Shabd or Pratyaksh? Pratyaksh, do you see a force throwing wires and pulling it down? Your senses, how do you perceive it with your senses? Can you perceive gravitational force with your senses? No, you cannot, or it would have been discovered much earlier. There is no comparison here. Shabda to hai nahi. It is arthapti. It is postulation. Then we went forward to prove it with lot of inferences. But this statement here is an arthapti. There must be some force that is pulling that object towards the Earth's surface. The object might have wanted to come back down. That is why also it came down. That is also a possibility. Okay. We are talking about all confusing things. As I told you, when some things are not clear and you have the will to infer whether it is positive or negative or absence or presence, that is when you go for Praman or you try to find it out. For things that you are sure and for things that anyways you are not aware of, you don't do Praman or you don't do inference. Next, Somdat, who is never seen eating during the daytime, is constantly gaining weight. Therefore, she must be eating during the night time. Here, again, what is used? It's arthapti, postulation, once again. There is no analogy, there is no comparison. With whom are we comparing her? We are just saying that she is not seen eating the day, so she must be eating in the night. That is why she is getting fat. Okay, it is presumption. Next, the Nyaya system does not accept arthapti as an independent source of valid knowledge. True or false? Second statement, the Nyaya system reduces arthapti to an inference of anvayi type. True or false? One is false, but two is true. One is true, two is false. Okay. See, Nyaya system does not accept arthapti and anuplabdhi as valid answers. Where did it go? Let's see that again. First of all, here the answer is C. Okay. Let's go back to a few slides. See, arthapti is not considered valid in Nyaya. Anuplabdhi is also not considered valid. If we are talking about anvayi, keval anvayi, keval vyatireki, and anvay vyatireki. It is not mentioned here that arthapti is one of the inferences of anvay kinds, right? So here, based on this, yeah, anvay is inference. Keval anvay, keval vyatireki, anvay vyatireki. It is different from arthapti. And Nyaya system does not accept arthapti. It says that that is not valid. Clear with this? Okay. Okay, two more questions and then we take a break. As per Indian School of Logic, Shabda Praman includes what out of the following? Only injunctive sentences, words of a scripture, words of a teacher, words of a trustworthy person. What does it include? All four? No. It includes only words of a scripture and words of a trustworthy person. If it was written here, words of a trustworthy and an expert teacher, we would have accepted it. It does not include words of any teacher. And it does not have only injunctive sentences. It has some authority. Next, which of the following is correct in the context of Shabda Praman? For Sankhya, a word signifies universal. Jainas, a word signifies particular. For Old Nyaya, a word symbolizes universal. For Vedantins, a word primarily means class character of individuals. So Shabda here is class character, whether you're trustworthy or not. Okay? And in Sankhya, a word means Vyakti, individual or person. That is another question which has been asked. That what is the meaning of word in Sankhya philosophy? So it means Vyakti or person or individual. So any person or object which has individual characteristics. That is why a word is Vyakti in Sankhya. Okay. So let's take a 5-minute break. Okay. And then we will start with Hetwabhasa, which is the second topic, and it is of similar reasoning and it takes similar effort to understand Hetwabhasa. Okay. So we'll gather back at 9:50. The break starts now. Hope you are recharged, refreshed, and ready to accept new knowledge in form of Hetva. Just like we did fallacies in Western logic, we talked about circular reasoning, then fallacy of composition, fallacy of division, red herring, straw man fallacy. Similarly, fallacies in Nyaya philosophy are called Hetva. Okay. So we started the session with here because this was the topic that we previously covered, 5 propositions. Okay. Yeah. This was a question that we can now solve after learning Vyapti and Paksh-dharma. Upanay, Paramarsh, Vyapti, and Paksh-dharmat. At least you know 3 out of this, right? So match them. The knowledge of Paksh-dharmat as qualified by Vyapti, the invariable relation or association of middle term in the minor term, application of the universal concomitants to the present case, and invariable association of middle term with the major term. Do a guess. I'll tell you the answer. The way we understand the thing and the way it is represented in question. The screen is already shared. I have not stopped screen sharing. It was already there. Can you see the presentation, everyone? Yes, right? Yes. Please refresh or please go back and join again. Can you see the screen now? Okay. Okay. So everyone, what could be the probable answers? 1, 2, 3, 4. At least if you think the wrong answer, you will be able to understand what is right. If you are just listening to it like a katha, then it's not going to work. Okay. So yes, the answer is 4. Now let's take them one by one. Upanay is the application. So in the 5 stages, if we see the 5 stages, where did it go? Okay, I just scroll to God knows where. Found it. Upna is the application. The 4th stage. Let's come back to the question. Yeah. So Upna is the application of universal concomitants to the present case. Next, let's leave Paramarsh for now. Vyapti. Vyapti is the invariable association of middle term with the major term. What is the relationship of the reason with what we are trying to prove? Middle term is your hetu or reason. Major term is your sadhya or whatever you are trying to prove. Paksha dharma. Invariable relation of middle term in the minor term. That is how it is described. Okay. And Paramarsh is the knowledge of Paksha Dharmat as qualified by Vyapti. It is the understanding that middle term is a reason for the major term. Middle term is the hetu or tark, which is a reason for the sadhya or major term as it is present in the minor term. The connection of Vyapti and Paksh Dharmat is called Paramarsh. This Paramarsh is not advise which is there in Hindi. Okay, it is different. Next, we talked about three terms: paksha, sadhya, hetu, minor term, major term, middle term. Now, all the fallacies of or hetubhasa of Indian logic system are based on these three words: minor term, major term, middle term, sadhya, paksha, linga. This is what you need to understand. Okay, and please take a moment to understand and memorize these terms, because the entire next topic depends on your understanding of these terms. Okay, ma'am, but after joining the WhatsApp group also, I guess we still have maths questions to solve. Okay, I'll share the link. At the end of the today's session, I'll share the link to join the WhatsApp group for those who have not already joined. So yeah, you can do that. Please remind me at the end. Next, this was something that we already discussed. Now let's start with Hetwabhasa. Okay. Hetwabhasa literally means semblance or appearance of reason. Hetu is the reason, Abhas is false appearance. So when you feel that the reason is there, but it is false appearance, it is Abhas of Hetu. The Hetu is not really there. The inference is not correct. It is a fallacy. That is Hetvabhasa, false reasoning or fallacious argument. Okay. What is material fallacy? Fallacy due to incorrect content or facts in argument. So this kind of fallacy is there in Western reasoning. The content is incorrect. Sorry. This kind of fallacy is there in Nyaya philosophy. The content or facts or the relationship of middle term and major term is incorrect. What is formal fallacy? Fallacy due to faulty logical structure or form. That is there in Western reasoning. All fallacies of the middle term are material because they depend on truth or falsehood of Hetu and its relation to reality. This is essential to remember because they ask questions like Hetubhasa is what kind of fallacy? Is it formal fallacy, true or false? No, it is material fallacy. Okay? Or formal material fallacy. Next, there are 5 rules of a valid middle term. Just like we had rules of syllogism, that from this kind of premise you cannot derive this kind of conclusion. There has to be distribution of middle term. Similarly, the reason or hetu here, the middle term can be considered valid. There are 5 rules for it. And the fallacies are breaking those 5 rules. Okay. So let's understand what are the 5 rules, and there are also questions based on these rules. First, paksha dharma, presence in minor term. Okay. Now, what is paksha dharma or presence in minor term? The hetu or the reason, the middle term, must be present in the paksh. It has to be present in the subject. The hill has fire because it has smoke. The smoke must actually be present on the hill. Okay? The middle term must be present in the minor term. The presence of middle term in the minor term is called paksha dharma. I'll make it even more clear. Because when they ask questions, they'll say there should be presence of middle term in the minor term. True or false? Prapaksha sattva. Presence of middle term in similar cases. So this is talking about consistency. That in kitchen where there is fire, where there is lot of fire, oh sorry, where there is smoke, there could also be fire. There is some consistent relation between fire and smoke. Where there is fire, there need not be smoke. But where there is smoke, like when we are doing choka, when you put ghee or oil and then you put cumin seeds, then there's smoke that comes out. So there has to be fire somewhere down, right? So when in kitchens also, when there is smoke, there is fire. This shows the consistent connection between the major term and the middle term. Okay? That is called sapaksha sattva. Vipaksha sattva. Vipaksh sattva is vipaksh asattva. Sapaksha sattva, it should be present in similar cases. It should also not be present in non-similar cases. Okay, the hetu must be absent where the major term is absent. So now if there is no fire, then there cannot be smoke. So in lake, there is no fire. So there should not be smoke in the lake. Otherwise, we cannot prove it. This proves that smoke does not appear randomly. Clear with these three rules? We just saw Paksh Dharmat in Match A with B. Okay. So these rules are part of Match A with B. They are also asked as statement 1, statement 2, true or false. Okay. Paksh Dharmat, presence of middle term in minor term. Sapaksha Sattva, presence of middle term in similar cases. And Vipaksh Asattva, absence of middle term in opposite cases. These are first three rules. Rule number 4 and 5. Abadit, not contradicted by other evidence. Now, fire is hot. Okay? So we cannot say fire is cold. If we say fire is cold, it is wrong. Because by perception, by our touch, even if you take your hand near to the fire, you will feel hot. You will feel your skin is getting heated. So with touch, with perception, with pratyaksh, we know that fire is hot. So saying fire is cold is not correct. It should not be contradicted by any other evidence. The middle term, the reason, should not be contradicted by a stronger knowledge like perception or testimony. Okay? Anuman, inference. What we are talking about are fallacies of Anuman. Inference. Perception, pratyaksh is a stronger praman than inference. So if pratyaksh says it is wrong, then it is wrong. So abadit. It should not be, it should be abadit. It should not be badit. It should not be contradicted by other evidence. And last is avirudh, not opposed other reason. Now, if I say that smartphones are good for health, because I can learn a lot about my health when I'm scrolling Google Chrome on the phone. But there is a contradictory statement that says that the rays which are coming out of the phone, they are harmful to health. So now there is contradictory reason. So what do you believe in? Smartphones are good or bad? Now it becomes confusing. It should not be like that. It should not be confusing. There should not be another reason which opposes the first reason. It is true that I can do Google search and about my health, but it is also true that there are waves which are harmful coming from the phone. The hetu or the middle term must not be opposed by another equally stronger reason, leading to opposite conclusion. We say sound is eternal because it is audible. But someone says sound is non-eternal because it is produced. Sound is eternal. Sound is always there because you can always listen to it. But someone says sound is not eternal. Sound is not always there. You have to produce the sound. It does not exist before the sound is produced. So it is non-eternal. Both seem logical and both are opposite to each other. So now there is a problem. Clear with Aviruddha and Abadit? or take a moment to let it sink in. Now clear? Should I repeat it? There's no response. At least say if it's not
Yes,
clear.
ma'am, if you can repeat it again.
Yes, I'll repeat it. I should repeat all 5 or this 2?
No, ma'am, only these two.
Okay. Abadit. There is no other evidence. There is no other praman. Pratyaksh praman says what the statement is wrong. Like fire can never be cold because it is always hot. We have praman, we have proof of it. By touching it, sensory perception, the strongest of all proofs. So when it is contradicted by other praman like perception, then it is abadit. Now, avirudh, you have another hetu, you have another reason which is opposing. Hetu versus hetu, middle term versus middle term. The fight is between middle term. Here the fight is not between another praman. Here the fight is between middle term. Smartphone is good because it helps you. Smartphone is bad because it causes problems in eyes. So smartphone is good or smartphone is bad? You have two opposing reasons. It is good for health, it is bad for health. Now here the fight is between reason and reason. The two middle term are opposite to each other. It is contradicted by equally strong or opposite reason, not praman. We are not talking about pratyaksh praman. We are talking about another reason. That is avirudh. Now clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Others? Guys? You will be more clear about this when we talk about their policies. Okay. Which of the following is our essential characteristics of the middle term according to classical Indian logicians? They have given 4 statements and now you have to choose which of this should be correct. The 5 rules of middle term. It must be present in minor term. It must be present in all positive instances in which the major term is present. It must be absent in all negative instances in which the major term is absent. It must be incompatible with the minor term. So what's the answer? Okay. So see, if the middle term or the reason is incompatible with the paksha, the hill should have fire because it has smoke. There is no smoke on the hill. The hill is the minor term. There is no smoke on the hill. So does it prove that there is fire on the hill if there is no smoke? That is the meaning of the statement D. It must be incompatible with the minor term. Would you like to change your answer now? No. Okay. So the answer is C. Let's move on. For Indian thinkers, inference or anuman means only a syllogistic inference. Okay? Think again. We are talking about Indian thinkers. Inference or anuman means only syllogistic inference based on the relation of invariable concomitants between the middle term and major term. What is invariable concomitants? Vyapti. What is middle term? Reason or hetu. What is major term? Sadhya, what we are trying to prove. Statement 2. There should be absence of middle term wherever there is absence of major term. So what is true? What is false? Please answer, everyone. What is inference? What is the meaning of anuman? Anuman is vyapti between middle term and major term, the connection between the two. Now, if the middle term is not there, if the reason is not there, then the whatever we are proving should also not be there. Only then we can prove a connection. So the answer is statement 1 and 2 both are true. Statement 1 is true because in Indian logic, particularly Nyaya philosophy defines inference as syllogistic reasoning process based on the relation of invariable concomitants vyapti between the middle term and the major term or sadhya. Statement 2 is also true because according to rule of Vyatireka or negative concomitants, the absence of middle term implies the absence of major term. If you see here in the rules, the absence of middle term where the major term is absence, that is vipaksh asatva, that is the rule. Okay. Next, the first fallacy. Now here, if you see, I have constantly written this on all slides just to let you remember that minor term is your subject, major term is what you are trying to prove because middle term is your reason. Okay, remember this always. First hetva bhasa is asiddha, fallacy of the unproved middle, where the middle term cannot be proved. It is also called sadhyashma. In case instead of asiddha, if you have the option sadhyashma, it means asiddha hetva bhasa. It is also called the fallacy of unproved middle. Please remember, they also write fallacy of the unproved middle. They don't even mention asiddha hetva bhasa. All these three terms are interchangeable and they might write only one of it. So you need to remember all three have the same meaning. Asiddha hetva bhasa, fallacy of unproved middle, sadhyashma. Now a lot of memory work is needed with hetva bhasa if you are not able to remember concepts. The concepts are difficult, I agree. If you feel that you cannot remember it, just remember all the examples. There is very low chance that they give a new example. Those same examples have been rotating since years. Relation between hetu and sadhya cannot be proved. You cannot prove that they are related to each other. Asiddha, it cannot be proved. Shadows are liquid because it has speed. Now, what are the properties of shadow? How much light is there? Which direction the shadow falls in depending on the light. Okay? Whether it is long, whether it is short, depending on the angle of light, depending on the size of person. Do we ever connect speed with shadow? Does it have a relation? No. Right? Reason and minor term do not have any relation. Asiddha hetva bhasa. When this statement is given, shadows are liquid because it has speed. Please remember, this is your fallacy, and if this fallacy asked and this is given as option, this is your example. Remember all the examples which are going to come now. There are three kinds of asiddha fallacies. First, ashraya asiddha. The subject or the minor term is unreal. Unreal subject, unreal imaginary minor term. whatever we are talking about, it does not exist. Sky lotus is fragrant because it is a lotus. There is nothing called sky lotus in this world. They're just like unicorns are beautiful because they are rainbow colored. Now there is nothing called unicorn in this world. So that is ashray asiddha, fallacy of unreal subject. Another example that they give is of golden mountain. Golden mountain is so and so because it is so and so. Golden mountain does not exist. Sky lotus does not exist. Sky flower does not exist. Clear with this concept? It does not exist. The subject does not exist in this world. It is imaginary. Clear? Ashraya Siddha? Guys, I need response. Yes? Thank you. Next, Swarupa Siddha. Fallacy of impossible property. Middle term is real, but does not match the minor term. Sound is a quality because it is visible. Now, visibility is not possible for sound. Another example of this is word is a quality because it can be seen from eyes. Can word be seen from the eyes? No. Words are spoken. You cannot see it. So that is, there is no connection between sound and visibility. Middle term does not match the minor term. Okay? There's one more example. Shadows are liquid because it has speed. That is also an example of this. Swarupa Siddha. Okay? Yes, what question do you have?
Ma'am, just one question here. Paksha is measure time before, right? No. I saw one slide where it's written Shadya is a minor term in the previous slide, I think.
I'll just think. Here? Minor term or subject. Sadhya is the name of Asiddha Hitva Bhasa.
Oh, ma'am, it's here.
Here. Okay. Relation between. Okay, yes. Thank you for correcting. Clear with Ashraya Siddha and Swarupa Siddha now? We go on. Vyapyatva Asiddha. Middle term does not prove the minor term. Why? Because they are switched. What needs to be proved has become the proof, and what needs to become the proof has become the proved. The hill has smoke because it has fire. Usually we say hill has fire because it has smoke. But now the places have been switched. Hill has smoke because it has fire. Not all fire produces smoke, like dry fire, like a red hot iron. It does not produce smoke. It just produces very red color. Smoke happens only when there is wet fuel. So the relation is conditional. So in this case, because the sequence or this places have been switched, it's Vyapyatva Asiddha, fallacy of conditional relation. This is what you need to take a screenshot of and remember the sentences for each Hetva Bhasa. You should not be using your brain in exam for this. Just memorize. If there is any other example, only then you should think. For these examples, you should know. And for hill, smoke and fire, please read the sequence of the words. Whether the fire comes first or whether the smoke comes first. Clear with these three? My dear students have stopped responding. Thank you. Next, Savyabhichara Hitva Bhasa. Middle term is inconsistent. Okay. So let's talk about birds. We are talking about birds. Now, eagles is a bird. But can we say eagle is all birds? No. It's just a small part of it. Can we say mammals are birds? No. Mammals are not included in birds. They are excluded. They are outside. Eagles are included in birds. If our subject is paksh, subject or minor term is bird, eagles are included in it. But eagle is not all birds. Mammals are not included in birds. Although they are included in the animal kingdom, mammals are excluded from our subject. That is birds. So whatever is included in birds is called sapaksha, and whatever is excluded is called vipaksha. Meaning of sapaksha and vipaksha. Whatever is included is sapaksh, which is excluded is vipaksh. Clear with sapaksh and vipaksh? Okay. So now what happens in savyabhichara? Savyabhichara, that the middle term is inconsistent. Either it is too broad, like it includes mammals also. Talks about all animals instead of just birds. It is too narrow. It talks only about eagles. Or it is confused. Three types of savyabhichara. Too broad subject, too narrow subject, and confused subject. Let's see them one by one. First, sadharan. Sadharan is where things are too broad. The hill has fire because it is knowable. Now, the hill can have fire, but what has it got to do with knowable? Because river is also knowable. So river also has fire. Everything that is knowable has fire? No, right? The subject is too wide. Okay? The middle term is too wide. The reason is too wide. Everything that is knowable cannot have fire. So the hill has fire because it is knowable. Your middle term is too wide. That is sadharan. It is present in sapaksh here, but it is also present in vipaksh. It is present where the subject is. It is also present where the subject is not there. So there is a rule that middle term absence of middle term, where there is absence of major term or absence of minor term, where the reason should not be there. If there is smoke, there has to be fire. But if there is no smoke, did I say something wrong? Yeah. If there is no smoke, you cannot directly infer that there is fire. Your reason is not valid. So in this case, here, because river is also knowable, this is very broad middle term. Too broad or common middle term, sadharan. Clear with this? The hill has fire because it is knowable. The hill, fire and smoke are going to come in all fallacies. At least you are able to understand the concept behind the too broad middle term with the figure that I have drawn. That these are all knowable objects, whether it is river, whether it is mountain, whether it is hill, whether it is plateau, whether it is volcano, or whether it is ocean. All of it is knowable. All of them cannot have fire. So that is why the middle term is too broad. Moving on. Asadharan. Too narrow middle term. Now the sentence here is sound is eternal because it is audible. Now how many things are audible in this world apart from sound? You can listen only to sound. There's no other thing which is audible. Where do you go and compare? Where do you draw inference from? The box of audible includes only sound. There is no other comparison that this is also audible and eternal. How do you compare? How do you draw the inference? There cannot be inference here because the middle term is too narrow. It is exclusive middle term. That is what they call it. Middle term is present only in the subject. It is not present anywhere else. There is no comparison possible. So the inference is weak. Understood this? In opposition with the previous one where it was everything, here it is only one thing. You don't have nothing to compare. And the third one is anupsamhari. They call it non-exclusive or all-inclusive middle term. Minor term is all pervasive. Middle term is all inclusive or non-exclusive. These are the words that they use in the question. What is the kind of fallacy where the middle term is non-exclusive and minor term is all pervasive? So here, middle term includes everything and minor term also includes everything. Where do you go and compare? There has to be some place where you go and compare and draw inference. All things, now this is our minor term. All things includes all things in the world are non-internal because they are knowable. Now knowable also includes all things in the world. Where do you go and compare it with? It's one big circle of minor term, similar big circle of middle term. There is nothing where you can say sapaksh, it is included, or vipaksh, which is excluded. Everything is already included in both of them. Non-exclusive, all pervasive. Another example is everything is nameable because it is knowable. Everything. Now, once you include everything, where do you go and compare and say that this is quality only of everything and it is not quality of nothing? Knowable is also everything. Again, so here the middle term is too wide. It includes not even wide, it includes everything. So does the minor term. That is called anupsamhari. There is no upsamhar. Clear with this? Remember these two examples. So these are the examples that have been asked in the question for survey bichara hitva bhasa. Middle term is too wide, too narrow, and it is all inclusive, non-exclusive. Nothing is excluded. Next few questions based on middle terms of survey bichar fallacy. According to Nyay, Classical Indian School of Logic, which of the following argument involves fallacy of anupsamhari? Non-exclusive middle term. That means the middle term includes everything. Where does the middle term include everything? Where does it non-exclusive? It excludes nothing. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The answer is 3. Yes. All things are non-eternal because they are knowable. Now see here, non-knowable, non-exclusive middle term, all inclusive or all pervasive minor term, all things are there. So this is anupsamhari. Another example. Same question in a different form. Here also the answer is same. Which of the following arguments is fallacious because the middle term is non-exclusive? All things are non-eternal because they are knowable. These are two questions. These two questions are from two different question papers. Okay. Which of the following arguments is fallacious because major term is all pervasive and middle term is all inclusive? This is how they ask. Major term is all pervasive, middle term is all inclusive. Major term is something that is what you want to prove, and middle term is the reason. Now here what seems all inclusive? Non-exclusive. Same. Everything is nameable because it is knowable. Anupsamhari. Next. Sapratipaksha hetvabhasa. Now the next three hetvabhas have no types. They are all 1, 1, 1. Okay. Sat pratipaksha hetvabhasa is Sat is true. Pratipaksha is counter argument. So the counter argument is true or valid. Okay, two arguments are there. It is also called fallacy of mental oscillation. They ask the question, which of these has the fallacy of mental oscillation? Either the answer is Sat Pratipaksha Hetvabhasa or the statement of Sat Pratipaksha Hetvabhasa. Here two statements are given and both of them are opposing. How are they opposing? Like this. Sound is eternal because it is audible. Sound is non-eternal because it is produced. Both seem to make sense, but they lead to opposite conclusions. So the original inference becomes invalid due to equal and opposite reasoning. And what we have learned about rules of middle term, there should not be equal and opposite reasoning. There should not be fight between the middle terms. So this is the fallacy, Sat Pratipaksha, fallacy of mental oscillation or fallacy of inferentially contradicted middle. You have done inference in both the sentences, and based on your inference, your middle term is contradicted. So based on the inference, the middle term is contradicted. That is why inferentially contradicted middle. Another example that has been asked previously in questions: alcohol is good because it protects you from cold. Alcohol is not good because it causes liver failure. Now, what kind of fallacy is this? Sat Pratipaksh. Fallacy of inferentially contradicted middle term or fallacy of a mental oscillation. Clear with this? Next. Badit Hetvabhasa. Non-inferentially contradicted middle. Here the middle term is contradicted, but not because of inference. It is just contradicted. We saw abadit. This is the fallacy of that. The middle term is contradicted by a stronger source of knowledge or praman other than inference. It is contradicted by perception, testimony, or other praman. Non-inferentially contradicted. It is not that the inference is causing contradiction. Because you know that fire cannot be cold, that is why, based on your perception, pratyaksh praman, we can say this is wrong. Fire is cold because it is a substance, but even though it is a substance, we know that all substances are not cold. We know that fire is not cold, fire is hot. Direct perception shows fire is hot. So middle term is refuted by another stronger praman, that is pratyaksh praman or perception. Okay. So it is not refuted by inference, but it is refuted by a stronger praman. Another way this statement could be asked is, fire is not warm because it is a substance. Instead of fire is cold. So again, we know that this is wrong because by perception, we know fire is hot. This is asked like this. According to Nyaya logic, which of the following statements is fallacious because it involves a non-inferentially contradicted middle term? What's your answer here? Non-inferentially contradicted middle term is abadit. So it's badit. Okay. If you see the options here, you will realize they are the options that we have learned in different Hetvabhasa. They keep on recycling the statements. Okay, the hill has fire because it is knowable. All inclusive, non-exclusive, middle term, all things are eternal because they are knowable. Sound is eternal because it is audible. We learned them in other policies, right? So you need to remember which statement comes in which policy. Last, fifth, hetvabhasa, viruddha hetvabhasa. Now here, there is contradiction of hetu and sadhya. It actually, the reason given is actually proving the opposite. Now, if I say that fire is cold because it has substance, it is not proving that fire is cold, fire is hot. But here the statement is such that the reason is actually proving the opposite of what it is supposed to prove. If I say smartphone is good for health because it causes problem to your eyes, then causes problem to your eyes is actually proving that it is bad instead of saying that it is good. Okay. Now, how is this question asked? Middle term validates the contradiction of major term. So in simple words, it supports the opposite of what it is supposed to prove. But how do they ask it in question? In which policy middle term is pervaded by absence of major term? Because it proves the opposite. So the major term is absent. It proves the opposite thing. The air is heavy because it is empty. Now, when something is empty, should it be heavy or should it be light? It should be light. So here the middle term does not have light. Light is absent here. Heavy is present. So the middle term is pervaded by the absence of major term. It is supporting the opposite of what it is supposed to prove. That is called viruddha hetvabhasa. And how do they ask it in question? Where the middle term is pervaded by the absence of major term. This is the terminology used. Clear with the meaning here and the example? Okay. Another example, sound is eternal because it is produced. But anything that is produced cannot be eternal because it is just produced. It was not existing before that. Like in Hindi, if I had to say it, कि कोई चीज अगर अभी जन्म लेती है तो वो अजन्म अमर नहीं हो सकती. उसने जन्म लिया. It was produced right now. It was just given birth. So then it cannot be eternal. Eternal is something that has always been there and will always be there. Something that is produced will die. So produced things are non-eternal. So instead of proving eternality, it actually proves the opposite. That is viruddha hetvabhasa. Sound is eternal because it is produced and air is heavy because it is empty. Two of these have been asked so far. This is Sat Pratipaksha. Actually, I should number it 3 because it is third policy. Fourth is Badit and fifth is Viruddh. Okay. These are the examples that you need to remember. Take a screenshot. Let's take the questions now. Which of the arguments is fallacious because the middle term is pervaded by absence of major term instead of its presence? Middle term is pervaded by the absence of major term. In which policy? Viruddha hetvabhasa. So what happens in viruddha hetvabhasa? It proves the opposite because major term is absent. The opposite of major term is present. So the answer is the sound is eternal because it is produced. Memorize it. Memorize, memorize, memorize. Next, according to Indian School of Logic, the argument sound is eternal because it is audible. See, the same statement is being repeated again. Is fallacious. According to classical Indian School of Logic, the argument sound is eternal because it is audible commits the fallacy of irregular middle term where the middle term is too wide. What is true, what is false? Yes. Statement 1 is true. It is viruddh hetvabhasa. It commits the fallacy of where the middle term is pervaded by the absence of major term. But irregular middle term and the middle term is too wide. That is savya bichar, sadharan. It is not viruddha hetvabhas. So statement 2 is incorrect. Too wide is sadharan. Okay. Next. Sound is eternal because it is produced. Refers to which hetva bhasa? Same statement being repeated again. The answer is viruddh. Okay. Next. Fallacy of the irregular middle term. Sound is a quality because it is visible. Sound is eternal because it is audible. Sound is eternal because it is produced, and all things are non-eternal because they are knowable. You have already seen all these statements. What is the fallacy of irregular middle term? Savyabhichar. The middle term is too wide, too narrow, or it includes everything. It leaves nothing as the Savaksh and Vipaksh. Okay. So here, two statements fall into that category. Sound is eternal because it is audible. That is asadharan. Because audible is only sound. We can't go and compare. All things are knowable. How do we go and compare what is eternal, non-eternal? It includes everything. Okay. Now see, sound is a quality is visible is actually a Swarup Asiddha fallacy. Okay. And this one we just saw. C is Viruddh. Next. According to Indian classical Indian school of logic, which policy is committed? Anything that is thinkable is nameable because it is thinkable. Anything that is thinkable is your subject. Is nameable is your major term. Because it is thinkable is your middle term. So what is the policy here? The subject is not anything. It is anything that is thinkable. That is your minor term. It is asadharan. Anything that is thinkable is included in thinkable. So where do you go and compare with anything else? That this is non-thinkable or not thinkable. Thinkable things are included in thinkable things. So your subject is too narrow. That is why it is asadharan. Remember this statement. It is asadharan. Next. Which policy is committed when the middle term is too wide? So they have clearly asked us the name of the policy. Too wide middle term, sadharan. Okay. The last topic, comparison of Aristotelian and Nyaya logic. We have already done this. This is just a quick recap. Deductive, whereas Nyaya logic is deductive, inductive. And deductive and inductive is not separate. It is continuous. Emphasis on formal validity, logical form. Here the emphasis is on formal material validity. Formal fallacies, whereas there are material fallacies in Nyaya logic. It is less formalized and separate. Induction is separate and less formalized, whereas here deduction and induction is included together as a means of knowledge. The emphasis is on abstract logical form, and here Nyaya logic, the emphasis is on concrete examples and perception. So given below are two statements. Aristotelian syllogism is only inductive and formal. Nyaya syllogism is deductive and inductive, inductive together, and formal material. So what is true? What is false? So this is true, but here it is not formal material, it is material. We don't place emphasis on formal. It is material fallacies only. Next. According to Nyaya philosophy, an argument does not proceed on issues that are well established. And according to Nyaya philosophy, an argument can proceed only on those issues that are completely and absolutely unknown. Which one is true, which one is false? I have explained it in the beginning. It does not proceed on issues that are well established, and it proceeds only on issues that are completely and absolutely unknown. Which one is true? See, it does not proceed on issues that are well established, and it also does not proceed on issues that are completely and absolutely unknown. It only proceeds on issues where there is confusion, where there is controversy, and there is a will or a desire to infer the presence or absence of the reason. Okay. Next, according to classical Indian school of logic, all fallacies are material fallacies. Nyaya syllogism is deductive inductive, but not formal material. What's the answer? Statement 1 is correct. Statement 2 is incorrect. Next. Indian logic treats induction and deduction as separate processes. Do we have separate induction and deduction? No, it is all together, included. Indian logic does not reject the verbalist view of logic. Okay, it does reject. That's the answer. What is verbalist view? It is about words and language. Whereas Nyaya logic considers the structure of thought and its application to the material world. We do not talk about the formal structure of the statement, whether it is straw man or whether it is red herring. We talk about how it is applied to the material world and where the thought is there. So that is why both of these are wrong. Induction and deduction is a common process, and it rejects the verbalist view of logic. Please remember, this has been asked umpteen number of times. The method of induction is used to the method of induction is used to affirm the major premise, since generality or universality cannot be perceived, and give separate treatment of inductive method. No. See, the method of induction is vyapti for us, concomitance, invariable concomitance. It is not syllogism of Western logic, and we do not give separate treatment to inductive. Okay. The classical Indian school of logic does not give separate treatment of inductive method. It's true, but this statement, universal propositions are obtained from perception itself by one of the forms of extraordinary perception. So see, if you remember in starting, we talked about alaukik perception, yogic perception, all of these things. So in Nyaya Shastra, extraordinary perception is also allowed. So that is true. Okay, this is another question that you should know. Which of the following statements is true regarding Nyaya logic? So the statement that is true, universal to particular. If you remember, particular is some, universal is all or none. Inference is from the particular to the particular through the universal. Nyaya logic can be described as inferences from the particular to the particular through the universal. Just remember this. Okay. This is a question that has been asked 2-3 times. It goes like this. Abhav is a topic in Advait Vedanta, and they have taken this topic not from Nyaya philosophy but Advait Vedanta. There are 4 kinds of bhav: Anyonya bhav, Atyanta bhav, Traga bhav, Pradham Sambhav. Now, I'll give you a small explanation. You can go and search about it on the net. Anyonya bhav is when 2 things do not exist. They do not exist together. There is a difference between the 2. A jar is not a cloth is not a jar. A mobile is not a laptop is not a mobile. This is not that. Anyonya bhav. Anya bhav. Difference. Atyanta bhav is absolute non-existence of something which can never exist. Rabbits do not have sing. They do not have horns. Okay? So the horn of a rabbit cannot exist. This is an example that they give in Atyanta bhav. You need to memorize it. Praga bhav is when something was made. Before that, it did not exist. So before this course started, this course did not exist 1 month back. Prior non-existence before an object comes into being. A house does not exist before it is built. Temporary absence of a thing. And pradhvam sambhav is destruction, or no, that is non-existence that happens when something is destroyed. Like after a pot is broken, it does not exist. After this course is over, this live course will not exist, even if the recorded are. Okay? So that is pradhvam sambhav. Based on this, they ask this. Match A with B, where Anyonya bhav is, this is not that. I'll show you the answer also. Atyanta bhav is hair's horn. Traga bhav, temporary absence of a thing. And pradhvam sambhav, there is non-existence of the jar now. The jar is broken already. This question has also been asked in this way. If you see, the options are same on the other side. Because this is philosophy. So they will not try to make it more creative. Okay? These are the words for it: mutual non-existence, absolute non-existence, prior non-existence, destruction non-existence. So these are the English versions of this word, and the same matter with B has been asked again. Atyanta bhav is eternal. If a particular thing does not exist in a particular locus at any time, it is said to be atyanta bhav of that thing. Here, the answer is both A and R are true. Atyanta bhav is eternal. It never exists. And if it does not exist in the particular locus at that time, it is said that it is atyanta bhav. This is the correct explanation of it. Okay? There are... Yeah. This is the question that I already told you. According to Sankhya school, a word signifies vyakti, person, object, or individuality. What is expectancy out of this? In this question, in the Hindi version below also, expectancy was written as ekasapectancy. They didn't write akanksha. Asakti, akanksha, yogyata, tatparyajan. Now we know expectancy means akanksha, ichha of something. Okay? So the answer is akanksha. Do not depend on Hindi version. This is what I discussed in beginning. What is accepted in Buddhism? Apoha and pratyaksha. They are expected as praman in Buddhism. And the last question. What is incorrect in the claim of context of vyapti or inference? For Charvak, it is possible to ascertain that smoke is invariably and universally attended with fire. That is not. Why? Because if you remember in the starting of the session, Charvak do not accept any praman except perception. So they do not accept anuman. Okay? The rest of them are true. for Vyapti, that for Buddhist, universal relation between smoke and fire can be asserted because they believe in Anuman. For Vedantis, Vyapti between smoke and fire is known to coexist and is never known to accompany smoke. Why? Because they believe in Anuman. Same for Nyaya Shastra also. It is neither easy nor necessary for the formation of a universal proposition to ascertain any relation of causality or identity between two phenomena. Okay? So that's the answer. They do not accept Anuman as valid Praman. That was the end of the session. Thank you. Have a great day and all the best for your exams.